المشتاق لا تنمي هذه أنوار ذي سلمي عن قليل أنت في الحرم عند خير العرب والعجم
قف أمام القابر بالأدب
أيها
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الفاتحة. من يتعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير ونفع الدفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على تمسك كتاب الله وسنة رسوله والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى وعلى ما نبينا سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى من وسلم صالحا وعلى من ورد المضيف الذي أحمد نزل الحبشي إن الله يدخل الإنسان في هديهم وأعمالنا في أعمالهم وأخلاقنا في أخلاقهم وطريقتنا في طريقتهم المقبول وإلى حضرة النبي سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. سيد الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. رب اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله وصحبه الحق كل عظيم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. So this week, inshallah, we will continue with the Zakat with Ahmad bin Zain's Risalah al-Jami'ah, part on Zakat. Okay, so this is a reminder for myself and for you. The Zakat actually should be understood as an honor. It would not be wrong to understand Zakat as an honor and ennoblement from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of the one who is paying Zakat, because Allah ta'ala placed the rizq of his other servants in the hands of the payer of the Zakat as a trust for him to disburse to them, for him to give to them on his behalf subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Zakat is also very important as a tool of social justice, to reduce the gap, the inequality between the wealthy and those who have not. Okay, so it's an important tool of economic redistribution, which would, in theory, if it's practiced according to the requirements of the religion, then there should, through the disbursement, through the managing of Zakat properly, the community should progress, and it would help the community to progress and reduce the deficits and inequality between the different segments of the population, and make everybody generally happier, and easier. Make it easier for everyone to various forms of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so now we move into the text, inshallah. Okay, I've already explained earlier, or rather the last session, at the end of the last session, that there is no zakat on livestock that is not grazing on public land. Okay, i.e. if the livestock is grazing at the expense of being fed at the expense of the owner, then there is no zakat, right? Okay, but if the livestock is being fed on public land, right, then the owner owes the zakat. So that's the last bit of explanation with regards to the livestock. Okay, last week I'm not going to go too much into that or into the other kinds of zakatable wealth. Right, today I would like to go into briefly the conditions for zakat of currency, i.e. gold and silver and and paper money, right? And just quickly for trading goods, and then maybe go through a few examples, right? Okay, so Wa'ila Anqar radiallahu anhu, Ahmad bin Zain carries on, he goes on to say, ويشترط الحول لها أي وكذلك يشترط للنقود والتجارة، ويشترط في هذه الأنواع النصاب أيضا. So the condition of zakat becoming obligatory on livestock, right? It's referring to the last session we covered, is the passing of one lunar year. Okay, so well, the passing of one lunar year, right, when you have a certain number of a certain amount or quantity or number of livestock or gold and silver or currency or trading goods, right? When a whole lunar year passes, the passing of that one lunar year is called, you have achieved a haul. Yeah, another condition is that they reach the nisab. So this haul and the nisab are two very important concepts to understand with regards to zakat. Okay, these are the primary concepts, primary things that we need to understand. So the nisab is the zakat payable amount, okay, the minimum amount on which zakat becomes due. So for livestock, it varies with the different kinds of animals. Okay, for gold and silver, right, it has to be pure in its pure form. Right, it's about 85 grams for gold, about 588 grams for silver. Okay, so the goal is based on the unit of measurement that they use, the weight that they use in the figure texts, right? Is, and based on the hadith also is taken from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For the gold is 20 mithqal, and for silver is 200 dirhams, which amounts to as in the slide, about 85 grams, right? And 588 grams, okay, of gold and silver respectively. With regards to paper money, the nisab is taken from the value of gold or silver, okay, whichever is lower of the two currencies. So it's either for paper money, it's either the monetary equivalent, the equal value in paper money of 85 grams of gold, or of 588 grams of silver, whichever is lower. Okay, and if you do a simple calculation, gold is a lot lower. Okay, so we usually we peg it against the value of 85 grams of gold. Okay, and one thing to note is that the value of gold shifts from month to month. So the nisab also would then shift. The price of gold shifts, and then the nisab also shifts together with the price of gold. It's not actually constant throughout the year. Okay, so if you might want to note and be careful of that. Okay, which is why it recommends the one of the approaches I'm going to be talking about later, that we pay a bit more anyway. Okay, just to be careful. Okay, with regards to the calculation of nisab, there are certain things to note. Okay, so the gold and silver are calculated separately. Okay, one cannot bring together the gold and silver, right, weigh them together to reach the nisab. Okay, but if it is wajib to combine if one has gold or silver of different kinds. So different kinds of gold should be combined together, and different kinds of silver should be combined together. Okay, or different kinds of paper currencies. Okay, so different kinds of paper currencies should be combined. They should be measured. They should be aggregated, calculated, cumulative. Cumulatively taken the whole of the different values. So for example, one has 5,000 US dollars and 3,000 Singapore dollars and 5,000 Malaysian ringgit. So all of that should be converted into a single currency, right, of the place where one is going to pay zakat. Okay, but gold and silver on its own should not be combined. So gold, a certain number of grams, and then 100 grams of gold and 100 grams of silver Right? Combined, that is not it's not allowed. Okay, so if you have 84 grams or 80 grams of gold, for example, and 10 grams of silver, then one still has not you cannot combine that and then consider that you have reached the nisab, right, which is 85 grams for gold. Okay, because if you add the 80 grams of gold and the 10 grams of silver, yeah, you get 90 grams, but because the rule is that they're not to be combined. Okay, except for if they're different kinds of gold, then they are combined, or if they're different kinds of silver, then they are combined. Okay. Okay, so the nisab is also based on the total. Okay, based on the total amount of gold or silver or currency, okay, paper money that one possesses, even if that is loaned out to other people. Okay, so even if it's not currently one owns it, one owns it, but it's not the money is not currently in one's possession. So by loan, if I give a loan to a friend, yeah, so I have, let's say the nisab is $7,000. Yeah, and I currently have $6,800, and I have loaned $300 out to a friend. Okay, so actually in total the amount that I own rather is 6,800 plus the 300, which is $7,100, which is $100 more than the nisab of $7,000. Okay, so if the total that I own, right, meets or is above the nisab value, then zakat is due. Okay, regardless of whether all of that money, all of those assets are zakatable assets are with me or not. Yeah, or in terms of gold, for example, if 85 grams of gold is the nisab, right, and I have 70 grams with me, right, and 15 grams, for example, with a friend who borrowed it. Okay, so then in total that means I own 85 grams, right, although the 15 grams is not with me. But the total owned is 85 grams, and that meets the nisab, and therefore it is zakatable. Okay, zakat is owed on the gold. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the nisab for paper money, okay, takes the lower of the two nisabs. Okay, and that's an example of a estimated, a rough calculation. Okay, so if it is 85 grams is the nisab, right, at $80 a gram, so the nisab for paper money would be 6,800, right? And if it's in terms of silver, it would be 23,520. So gold is a lot less. Okay. Okay, so that's with regards to the nisab. So if at any one point of time I have, for example here, okay, either I have 85 grams, okay, either I have 85 grams in I have 85 grams in gold, or I have 588 grams, right, at least in silver, or I have $6,800, okay, with me, right. In the event that I have one of these forms of currency, then the nisab, these are the nisab amounts. So if I have this kind of this amount, Okay, then we have to, then the whole begins. Okay, the lunar year begins, the countdown begins towards one whole lunar year. So if I have this amount of money with me for the whole lunar year without at any point dropping below 6,800, then at the end of the lunar year in 12 months time, right, 12 Hijri months time, then I will be paying 2.5%. Right? I will be paying zakat on this, zakat of 2.5% on this amount. Okay, so that's what we are talking about next. The second consideration is the haul. So first of all, if I meet, as I mentioned earlier, if I meet this minimum amount, I have $6,800, for example, on 1st of Muharram, okay, 1440, or 1st of January 2000, okay, 1st of Muharram rather, okay, 1440. And when it comes to the 1st of Muharram 1441, and I would have reached the full haul. Okay, and therefore the next day zakat will be due on this. The zakat will be then due on the $6,800. Okay, and when the zakat is paid, then, and I still have this amount with me, the nisab or beyond or above it, then a new haul begins for the following year. Okay, so this is what the haul is. The haul is the full lunar year, right, during which the zakat payable property, right, whether this is the in terms of having fulfilled the nisab and what is beyond it, or increments, okay, increases on the nisab, what is beyond the nisab, remains in one's possession. Okay, so when you say unbroken here, the full lunar year is the whole. We say unbroken because if in Muharram, for example, I have first Muharram 1440, I have $7,000, okay, and the nisab is $6,800, and then a few months later, suddenly my or even a month before the whole, before the next Muharram, okay, before the next Muharram, i.e. before the next Muharram, i.e. in the next year 1441, okay, a month before that, the amount that I have, for whatever reason, whether I use it to buy something, or I'm paying something, I'm paying for something, or I'm even okay, if I use it to buy something, for example, like, or it's a business loss, for example, okay, let's say my income is reduced to below this amount, then the whole would have been broken. Okay, so when the whole is broken, an unbroken whole means I have this amount at least for a whole year. That is what is considered that whole year is the when that whole year while I have this amount at least, right, not dropping below this amount, then that whole year is considered to be the whole, an unbroken whole. Yeah, but once the amount that I have drops below this nisab, right, then the whole is broken, and the whole will only begin again when I reach the nisab value. Okay, then we will look at the charts that I will present in a bit. Okay, and the whole is a 12-month period, means 12-month period which is applicable on the nisab. Okay, as I mentioned, and it's broken if the ownership of the property ceases even momentarily. So all is broken if, as I said, you go to one does not meet the nisab requirement, right? The amount of property with me drops below $6,800, for example. The whole is broken in that event. Right? It is also broken if ownership of the property ceases, right? Even if it's for a very short while. Okay, so for example, I give the property, if I give out of the $6,800, maybe I give $1,000 to someone. Okay, and then the next day, this person returns it to me. Okay, but the minute, not as a loan, yeah. If it's a gift, yeah, a transfer. Okay, so if I transfer, I give this money to somebody else. The minute I give this money to somebody else, the $1,000, then I would have fallen, the amount of money that I have, the property that I have, would have fallen below $6,800, which is the nisab, right, to $5,800. And when that happens, the whole is broken. So it's only when the next day this person returns it to me, then the whole does not resume, the whole starts fresh. Okay, so, or if in the event that the property, another example is if the property is destroyed before the whole date, yeah, or I have some property which is made of gold or silver, right, and it is sold before the haul is due. Okay, in that case, then there is no, even if assuming I meet the nisab, okay, I have the basic amount of money, the required amount of money in my savings or in my possession, right, and I sell the property just before the haul is due. Okay, so the no zakat on the property, but when it is sold, there is no zakat on the property because it did not meet the haul. Yeah, but the money that one gets in return, right, the money that is earned from the sale, right, and the haul then begins on that income. Okay, assuming again that the total amount possessed has passed or is equal to or past the nisab. Okay, so the haul is only effective when the nisab is possessed. Right, when I have in my hand an amount that is equal to or more than the nisab, then the haul begins. If it drops below the nisab, the haul breaks. Okay, but to do this kind of thing is haram. The scholars have a difference of opinion. Some say it is haram, some say it is makruh, some say it's haram, i.e. forbidden, illegal. Some say it's makruh, disliked. Okay, to transfer ownership when approaching the haul to avoid having to pay zakat. Yeah, so obviously this not, if it's done in bad faith, right, then it will make sense that the ruling would be haram, right, and it will be makruh in the event that, you know, I suppose there are certain mitigating factors. Okay, so again, with regards to the loan, as I mentioned earlier, the haul is not broken for property that in total meets the nisab, but is not in one's possession. Okay, so zakat is due on property even that is loaned out or stolen or lost. Okay, but this zakat is due or should be paid when it returns. Yeah, and if this property is not returned, the loan is not repaid, or the stolen amount is not recovered, you know, then if one cannot regain possession of that property, then there is no zakat due. Okay, and one should note, we should take into account, right, that if, for example, I have $6,800 exactly, okay, meeting I possessed that amount with me, the nisab amount with me, and this year, and I keep it with me for a few years, right, without paying zakat on it. So after the first year, the obligation of paying zakat is no more on me, because after the first year, right, the amount that I have, that I own, right, even though $6,800 is with me in my possession, right, but the amount that I own would be $6,800 less the amount of zakat that I was supposed to pay in the first year, because that money is no longer owned by me, although it is possessed by me, it's in my hand, okay, but it's not. Now it actually belongs to the poor, right, the people who were meant to receive the zakat. Okay, so that by the mere fact that a full lunar year transpires or passes, right? Okay, while the zakat, that zakat payable property is in my hands, then what it means that is that the poor now own that portion of it, that part of it that I'm obliged to pay as zakat. Okay, so it's no longer my possession, although it is in my possession. It is no longer I no longer own it. Okay, so there's something important to take note of. Okay, and then I would, of course, in that situation, in that scenario, I would have to pay zakat only on in the first year, because as I mentioned, after the first year, I would have to pay 2.5% of 6,800. At the end of the first year, I would have to pay 2.5% of $6,800, which is whatever amount, but whatever amount that is, that means the remaining balance that belongs to me, right, and not to the poor, it has already fallen below the nisab. So the next year I don't owe, I'm not owing any zakat. Okay, assuming that my possessions remain at 6,800. Okay, but this is the way to understand it. Okay, that the zakat, once the zakat is due, that zakat is no longer yours, right, and therefore it should be taken out of your property as soon as possible. Okay, there should be a sense of urgency to this. Okay. وواجب التجارة ربع العشر، وواجب الحبوب والثمار التي سقيت بمؤنة نصف العشر، وبغير مؤنة العشر. The amount that has to be paid, the zakat that has to be paid on gold and silver and trade goods, currency and trade goods, and paper money also, and trade goods is 2.5%. And on crops and fruits grown by irrigation, the zakat is 5%. And if the land is not irrigated, it is 10%. 10%. Okay, that will be all will be covering on crops and fruits. Okay, and the zakat for gold and silver, as I mentioned earlier, and paper money as well. These three are considered currency. Yeah, or need to be considered. I will consider them or designate them as currency, right? And trade goods, right? So respectively, they are 2.5% each. Okay, so now I want to quickly go through the conditions that oblige zakat on currency, okay, i.e. gold or silver or paper money. Okay, firstly, it should reach the nisab. Okay, what is the nisab? As I mentioned earlier, the minimum zakat payable amount. So if we have this amount of money with us, we have this amount of property with us, then we are obliged to pay zakat, depending on whether one fulfills the haul. Okay, but without the nisab, there is no talk of the haul. The haul only kicks in when we have the nisab amount. Okay, so first of all, the obligation to pay zakat on currency is that first it must reach the nisab. So 20 mithqal of gold or 85 grams of gold, 200 dirhams of silver, 588 grams of silver, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, it should reach the nisab. Secondly, now that the nisab has kicked in, we have this amount or more. Yeah, so the nisab is now in our possession. Then the haul begins. Okay, so after the haul, we have this amount, right? And it doesn't drop below the nisab level. We have a certain amount for the whole year, the whole lunar year. Okay, the full lunar year passes while this zakat payable property is in my possession. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, if it's not in my possession, it belongs to me, but it's not in my possession, it should also be counted towards the nisab. Okay, and if I sell it, if I have gold or silver in my possession, for example, and I sell it a few weeks before the haul, right, then the haul on that property is broken. Okay, but the whole on the assuming it fulfills the nisab requirement, then the whole on the money that comes in, the earnings, then would begin. Okay, and as I mentioned also, it is either to do this, it's either makruh or haram. In that case, it would be rather embarrassing to, if I were to do this in bad faith with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Waliyadhu. Okay, thirdly, okay, the gold or silver should not be permissible jewelry or ornaments kept for use. Okay, so the focus is on permissible jewelry or ornaments and use. Okay, so what is excluded by this definition? Okay, so hang on. First of all, if it is permissible jewelry or ornaments that are kept for use, right, then there is no zakat. Okay, on these ornaments. So, for example, if I buy my wife a gold necklace, right, and it's meant for her to use, right, then there is no zakat on this necklace. Right, even if later at some point we decide to sell it, right, at a profit. Okay, but so there's no zakat on the necklace itself. But once the transaction is done and we receive money in return for the gold necklace, right, then a haul would begin on the income that one receives from the sale of the necklace. Okay, assuming again, of course, that the nisab is fulfilled. Okay, so for permissible, okay, so what is excluded by this definition, by these parameters here, right? First of all, is jewelry or ornaments that are not used but kept. Yeah, kept but not for use. Okay, so what happens is that, some people they keep this jewelry for investment purposes, right? Because they are as appreciating assets, right, whose value will increase over time, and then at a later time to sell it at a profit on the original price that was paid for it. Right, so I buy a gold chain, for example, maybe for $2,000 now, right, and then next year I sell it for 3,000. Okay, so if it's kept in that way and it's not used, right, then this piece of jewelry or ornament is excluded by this definition. Okay, then therefore you pay zakat on it. Okay, if it's kept but not for use. Okay, secondly, excluded by this definition also, right, we focus on the word permissible. Okay, because this is a parameter. So if it's not permissible, then there is zakat that applies on it. Not permissible, it can be either what is used. Permissible is the use is not permissible. Okay, it can either be use that is makruh, for offensive, okay, or use that is haram. So an example of makruh use is an excessive amount of gold that is used to solder broken pottery, okay, even if there's genuine need. Okay, so the ulama explain the wisdom behind this is that the poor, if a poor person were to see that so much gold was used just to solder together a vase or a bowl, right, that they would feel it in their heart, that the sight of that would hurt them. It would hurt their feelings. That's one example of non-permissible or other than permissible use. Okay, the other example is a haram use, right? So when it's used for something that is forbidden or in a way that is forbidden. So in example being men using gold or excessive jewelry on women. Yeah, excessive being relative to the custom of their place, time and place, or when this property, when this gold or silver is used in ornaments, right, in the form of figurines, okay, or deities, and so on. Okay, so these are excluded by that definition of or the parameters of being permissible jewelry or ornaments kept for use, and therefore these would be zakat would be owing on these properties. Okay, with regards to trade goods, quickly, first of all, it should fulfill the haul, right? Second, again, haul and nisab always, nisab at the end of the haul only. Third, that the property be in the form of merchandise or goods. Okay, what is excluded by merchandise or goods? Right, currency. So if it's in a currency form, i.e. gold or silver or paper money, right, then there is no trading zakat that applies. Okay, these are not considered trade goods. Okay, but there is a currency zakat that applies. Right, the zakat that applies for gold and silver and paper money. An interesting point to note is that, for money changers, right, money changers almost never have to pay zakat, since the currency practically never reaches a haul. Right, money keeps changing hands, so the money never stays with them for a whole lunar year. Okay, another condition that makes zakat wajib on trade goods is that one intends trading at the point of purchasing the goods, okay, or when getting into a transaction to sell them. Okay, so if the intention is personal use or keeping, or for keeping, then it's not zakatable, right, until one changes the intention to trading. Okay, in which case then the whole begins with the transaction or the exchange. Okay, fifth, right, that one not intend keeping for utility during the whole period. So if one has trade goods or merchandise, right, and one intended initially to when buying them, one was intended to trade them, but then later you change your mind and decide, okay, I'm going to just keep this for my personal use. At that point, then the haul is broken. Okay, so if we change the intention from trading to keeping or for personal use, then the haul is broken, and therefore there is no zakat, right, that is due on that merchandise or trade good. Okay, so those are the conditions for zakat on obligating or making wajib zakat on currency and on trade goods. Right, so next we're going to move quickly to an example, okay, of zakat calculations. Okay, so here we see that in Muharram 1440 I have $5,000, right. This is below the nisab, which is 7,002. Right. In the next month I have 7,199, which is still below $7,200, the nisab, so therefore no haul begins. But in Rabiul Awal, right, 1440, I have 7,200. Okay, so the haul on this 7,200 begins, right. Okay, and eventually if it stays within my possession, it stays in my account, right, until the next Rabiul Awal, then I have to pay 2.5% of it as zakat. Okay, so this is when we take the lowest amount, okay, and we pay zakat on the lowest amount that is with us, right, for during the haul. Okay, then in this case we have to pay it on a monthly basis, so it's quite tedious to have to calculate month by month. Okay, so for example in Rabiul Awal we have 7,002, and the next month we earn another $800, right, so the total savings is $8,000. We make another $800 in the next month, Rabiul Thani, right. So the haul for that will come in the next year's Rabiul Thani. So if this $800 remains with me the whole time, right, for 12 months, the whole lunar year, then by next Rabiul Thani 1441 I would have to pay 2.5% of $800. Okay, so in Rabiul Awal I would have paid 2.5% on 7,200. In Rabiul Thani I will then have to pay 2.5% on $800, because now this $800 has been in my position for a full year. Okay, and so on, the same with the $500 that I earned in Jamil al-Awwal. right, 1440, it will become the zakat on it will be due in Jabal al-Awwal 1441. Okay, so after having paid the first amount after I hit nisab, so all the increments, every increase in earning, right, is all zakat is due, right, on each of these increments. Because we're taking the lowest figure for the whole during the whole. Okay, now we get to this part here. Here it's a bit tricky. So in Rajab 1440, I make $12,200, which is a $3,200 increase from Jabal al-Akhir. Okay, 300. Just look at the figures here. $3,200 equals 3,100 and 100. Okay, this has to do with this, which I'll explain now. Okay, so now this $3,200. The next month I make another $700. The next month I make another $600. But in this month, right, in Shawwal 1440, right, I lose $1,400. See, from 13,500 to 12,100. So I lose $1,400 in Shawwal. Right, therefore, there's no earning in Shawwal, and a bit of the earnings that I made in Rajab, 1,400. Right. So part of it goes here, another part of it goes here, and another part of it is here. Okay, so that means it wiped out this $600 that I made in Ramadan was wiped out by this loss in Shawwal. Right. Similarly, the $700 I made in Sha'ban, right, was also wiped out by this. So the haul, this was in the process of going to a haul, but this haul has been cancelled, has broken here. Okay, in Shawwal, this haul and this haul, right, the haul for Ramadan and the haul for Sha'ban has been broken in Shawwal. I.e., the money that was gained that went into my account in this month and this month has now come out. It's no longer in my account. It's no longer in my possession. Right? And on top of that, this is 1,003. So another $100 is taken from the earnings that I made, right, in Rajab. Okay, but most of it is still in the account, right, $3,100. Okay, the $3,100 is still within this, still in the account. 100 was lost. Okay, in Shawwal, right, together with the 700 and 600, 1,004 total. Okay, so we just adjust this, right, from 2.5% on 3,200. Right, we have to take away the 100 that was lost in Shawwal, and then we continue with the haul, but based on 3,100. Okay, based on 3,100, as we're going to see in the next slide. Okay, so the haul for Rajab, right? The haul for Rajab is intact. It stays in place. It's just that at the end of the haul, we don't pay it on $3,200. Okay, because we lost the $100 in Shawwal. Okay, instead of that, we're going to pay it on $3,100. Okay, because this was the money from these earnings which still remains in my account. Okay, so this one there's no haul, right? For Sha'ban, there's no haul. For Ramadan, also the haul is broken, right, because of the loss in Shawwal. So the next one I make a profit is Dhul Qa'idah, 700, right? And this stays in my account. Right? It goes in all the way. So the next Dhul Qa'idah, I owe, what is it? Shawwal. Yeah, sorry, Dhul Qa'idah. This should be at Dhul Qa'idah. Okay. So the next year, same time, I owe zakat on this $700, and so on. Okay, so monthly here I make 200 more. and the Hijjah, and then the following month I lose. See, 13,000. My earnings go down to 12,800, so I lose the $200. So this haul that was about to begin was broken also by the loss of the 200, by the loss of this 200. Okay, so it's rather complicated, this method of counting. If you want to take the lowest amount during the haul, then we have to calculate it monthly, right? And it's very complicated. And a better idea, much simpler idea, is just to go with the annual calculation. Okay, so in this case we see in Rabi al-Awwal 1440 we have 7,002. Right, and there's an increase monthly. Okay, so it increases every month, right, until there's a bit of a drop in Muharram 1441, but this is still above the nisab value zakat, right, for 12 months, 12 lunar months, a full lunar year, until we hit Rabi al-Awwal 1441. And Rabi al-Awwal 1441 we have with us $14,000. So we pay we pay 2.5% of $14,000, right? So we're going to end up paying a little bit more, right, than if we tracked monthly. Okay, but this with also taking into account the fluctuations in the price of gold, so we might not end up paying the correct prices. We might be underpaying at certain times, and also the fact that if you overpay, whatever you pay extra above and beyond what is wajib, the zakat, is considered a charity. So inshallah Allah will accept, and Allah is the most generous, right, the most rich. So He will not, rather He can only invite and attract blessings, right, for the property that stays with you. Okay, so this is easier, right? There's no need to track month to month, right? But there's a pays slightly more, right, by paying the higher end of the haul, the higher limit of the haul. Okay, so instead of paying $7,200 in 1 month, and then the following month paying on the $800 that we make, and then the following month paying on the $8,500, the $500 extra earning, and then on the again $500. Instead of going that way month by month, we just calculate this way, right, from Rabi al-Awwal hitting the nisab, one whole haul, right, and then we pay the higher limit, the upper limit, okay, the amount that we have at the time the haul is reached, which is 1,004. Okay, so this example is just to show when it falls below the nisab and what happens. Okay, so here we have Rabi al-Awwal 1440, we have 7,002 in the account, right, and there is increase, and then suddenly in Rajab savings drop. Okay, the earnings drop to $6,000. So this is below the nisab. Okay, when it drops $6,000, then it drops this amount, then the haul is broken because it falls below the nisab, right? But the following month there is an increase again, and it's passed. Okay, this is the second haul now. Okay, this was haul number 1, right, which was broken here. Right now here another haul begins, because now we are at $12,900, which is above the nisab value. Okay, and so we begin, and we go on for 12 months. Okay, so this was the this was the initial haul, which would have been reached if this haul was not broken. Right, we would have had to pay 2.5% on 14,000, but this haul is broken, right? So then we began a new haul, right? And then this becomes due in the following year's Sha'ban, right? 2.5% of $20,000. Okay, so hopefully that helps to imagine the zakat payments, right? And this is a brief, just covering it briefly. And if you would like to have more detail right, and a better understanding, I recommend strongly going to the Al-Wafa YouTube channel and look up the playlist on Risalah al-Jami'ah that begins with or titled from Sujud Sahwu onwards, which is taught by Ustaz Abdul Rahman Balkhi, right, and his explanation is more thorough and more in depth if you need that information, inshallah. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam wa alihi al-futuh wa salatu sirri wa ruh wa tawbatan nasuh. مثل الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين.
يا ربنا اعترفنا بأننا اقترفنا وأننا أسرفنا على لظى أشرفنا فضلا وجودا منا لا باكتساب منا بالمصطفى الرسول نحظى بكل سول بالمصطفى الرسول نحظى بكل سول بالمصطفى الرسول نحظى بكل سول